They sent their strongest. Humans sent her and a wrench. HFY story. The axiom, "The man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others," has become synonymous with human military doctrine, though its practical application remains a source of bewilderment among the galactic community. This document serves as a comprehensive analysis of the incident known as the Proxima Station defense, where humanity's unconventional approach to warfare was displayed in its most raw and terrifying form. When the Zelkan hegemony dispatched their elite shock troopers to neutralize the human research outpost on Proxima Station, they expected swift capitulation. The station housed 43 researchers, 12 security personnel, and 1 maintenance engineer. Against this modest force, the hegemony sent 200 of their finest warriors, equipped with plasma weaponry, personal shields, and combat exoskeletons that had conquered 17 star systems. What they encountered defied every military doctrine in the known galaxy. Initial assessment and strategic overview. The attack began at 0347 station time. Zelkan forces breached the outer hull using quantum cutters, their advanced team sweeping through the residential sectors with mechanical precision. Within 30 minutes, they had secured 60% of the station and cornered the remaining humans in the engineering section. By all tactical assessments, the engagement should have concluded within the hour. Chief Engineer Martinez Elena Santos, age 34, had been awakened by the breach alarms with a peculiar expression that her colleagues would later describe as disappointed annoyance. While the security team established defensive positions and the researchers huddled in safe rooms, Santos walked calmly to her workstation and began typing. When asked by Security Chief Rahman what she was doing, her response entered into both human legend and alien nightmare. "Now I have to fix their mistake." The first indication that this would not be a conventional engagement came when the station's artificial gravity began fluctuating in patterns that seemed to defy physics. Zelkan troops found themselves fighting against gravity that shifted from 0.8 g to 3.2 g in seemingly random intervals, their advanced targeting systems useless against an enemy that appeared to predict gravitational anomalies with supernatural accuracy. What the Zelkans interpreted as some form of human precognition was actually Santos manually adjusting the gravity generators based on real-time tactical assessment and an intimate knowledge of the station's infrastructure that bordered on the supernatural. Santos had spent 6 years maintaining every bolt, wire, and circuit in Proxima Station. She knew that Gravity Generator 7 had a 0.3-second delay in response time. She knew that the atmospheric recyclers created minute pressure differentials that affected projectile trajectories in Section C. She knew that the magnetic field generators, when operated at 107% capacity, would interfere with Zelkan combat exoskeletons because she had read their technical specifications in a trade journal 3 months prior and noticed the shielding frequency overlap. The philosophy of self-destruction and reconstruction. To understand Santos's actions during the siege, one must first comprehend the human concept of deliberate self-weakening as a path to strength. The phrase, "the man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others," is not merely motivational rhetoric among humans. It represents a fundamental restructuring of psychological and tactical thinking that allows them to perform actions that other species consider impossible. As the Zelkan forces advanced through the engineering section, Santos began systematically shutting down life support systems. To the aliens monitoring her actions, this appeared to be either sabotage or suicide. The temperature dropped to -15 degrees Celsius. Oxygen levels fell to 14%. Emergency lighting failed, plunging entire sections into darkness. The Zelkans, confident in their environmental suits, pressed their advantage as the humans appeared to be killing themselves through environmental collapse. This assessment proved catastrophically incorrect. Santos had spent her entire career working in environments that would kill most sentient beings. She had repaired atmospheric processes in vacuum, welded hull breaches while wearing nothing but a pressure suit and determination, and once spent 14 hours in a radiation field that exceeded safe exposure limits by 400% because a cooling system failure threatened to destroy the entire station. The hostile environment she created was not unfamiliar territory, it was home field advantage. Her colleagues, initially panicked by the failing life support, quickly adapted with a synchronization that spoke to years of emergency drills and shared hardship. Dr. Yamamoto secured emergency oxygen reserves. Technician Bauer activated thermal gear that had been stored for external maintenance operations. Security Chief Rahman redistributed night vision equipment that hadn't been used since the station's construction. In 17 minutes, the humans had transformed from a besieged population into a predatory force perfectly adapted to an environment that was rapidly becoming hostile to their attackers. Part 1. The Wrench Doctrine. The weapon that would define the engagement was discovered 3 hours into the siege, when Santos made a statement that would echo through military academies across the galaxy. "I don't need a gun. I have a wrench and an understanding of physics." The tool in question was a standard adjustable torque wrench, mass-produced by Nakamura Industrial Solutions, rated for 500 Newton meters of force, and completely unremarkable in every way except for its proximity to someone who understood how to weaponize the fundamental forces of the universe. In Santos's hands, this maintenance tool became something that defied classification in any known military manual. Her first tactical application came when a Zelkan patrol advanced through the primary corridor toward the reactor chamber. Santos had spent the previous hour carefully adjusting the magnetic field generators, creating what she termed localized distortion zones. When the Zelkans entered the corridor, their weapons stopped functioning, their targeting systems flickered, their communications equipment produced static. The patrol leader, Warrior Prime Thakvar, would later report that his squad experienced impossible equipment failures at the moment of contact. What Thakvar didn't understand was that Santos had created a precisely calibrated electromagnetic field that interfered with Zelkan technology while leaving human equipment unaffected. The frequency differential was based on manufacturing standards she had memorized from technical documentation, exploited through infrastructure modifications she could perform blindfolded, and deployed through an understanding of physics that treated the entire station as a single massive weapon system. The wrench became relevant when the Zelkans adapted by switching to projectile weapons unaffected by electromagnetic interference. Santos emerged from the maintenance shaft where she had been working, approached the lead Zelkan warrior, and struck his weapon with what appeared to be a casual tap of her wrench. The advanced plasma rifle, worth more than most starships, fragmented into its component molecules. Post-engagement analysis revealed that Santos had identified a resonance frequency in the weapon's crystalline focusing array and delivered a precisely calibrated kinetic impact that caused catastrophic harmonic failure. She accomplished this by observing the weapon for 4 seconds, performing calculations that would challenge most university physics departments, and applying exactly 67 Newton meters of force at a specific angle to a component that most technicians couldn't identify without disassembly. The remaining patrol retreated in disorder after watching their leader's weapon dissolve in his hands, reporting to command that the humans possessed matter disintegration technology of unknown origin. Environmental warfare and industrial psychology, the genius of Santos's defensive strategy, lay not in technological superiority but in psychological warfare conducted through environmental manipulation. By the 6th hour of the siege, the Zelkans found themselves fighting an enemy who appeared to control reality itself. Lights failed when Zelkan forces entered rooms, then blazed back to life when they retreated. Atmospheric pressure dropped precipitously in areas under alien control, then normalized the moment human defenders appeared. Gravity fluctuated with seemingly malicious intelligence. Temperature variations created convection currents that deflected projectiles in ways that violated ballistic computer predictions. The Zelkans began reporting paranormal activity and weaponized environmental systems that demonstrated intelligence and hostile intent. What they failed to understand was that Santos was manually controlling every environmental system on the station, through a combination of hardwired overrides, jury-rig control circuits, and an understanding of infrastructure that treated mechanical systems as extensions of her own nervous system. She had destroyed her weak self, the self that depended on automation, on standardized procedures, on the assumption that technology would function as designed. In its place was someone who could manually control artificial gravity through careful manipulation of power distribution, who could create atmospheric pressure differentials by opening maintenance valves in calculated sequences, who could turn a space station into a living weapon through nothing more than intimate knowledge of how machines worked and the absolute determination to make them work differently. Part 2. The engineering mindset as military doctrine. The transformation of Proxima Station from research facility to fortress required Santos to fundamentally reconceptualize the purpose and potential of every system under her control. This process exemplifies what human military philosophers call destructive reconstruction, the systematic dismantling of conventional thinking in order to build something stronger from the same components. By hour 8 of the siege, Santos had repurposed the station's research equipment into weapon systems that defied traditional categorization. The particle accelerator, designed for materials analysis, became a precision energy weapon capable of penetrating Zelkan combat armor at ranges of up to 400 meters. The atmospheric processing system transformed into a chemical weapons platform that could selectively deploy concentrated oxygen, creating combustible environments in areas occupied by enemy forces. The waste management system became a projectile launcher capable of delivering maintenance tools at velocities that turned routine hardware into armor-piercing ammunition. The Zelkan forces, trained in conventional warfare against predictable enemy technologies, found themselves completely unprepared for weapons that shouldn't exist. Their tactical manuals contained no countermeasures for weaponized sewage systems or combat-modified research equipment. Their intelligence briefings had not prepared them for an enemy who treated the fundamental nature of matter and energy as variables to be manipulated rather than constants to be worked around. Santos's approach to the conflict demonstrated the core principle of human engineering. Every problem is solvable if you understand the underlying systems well enough to break them correctly. She had spent 6 years learning how every component of Proxima Station functioned, not just in normal operation but under stress, in emergency conditions and when pushed beyond design specifications. This knowledge became tactical intelligence when applied to the problem of eliminating hostile forces. The wrench's philosophical statement, the continued presence of Santos's wrench throughout the engagement, served as more than just a tool. It became a symbol of human engineering philosophy that confused and terrified the Zelkan forces in equal measure. While aliens equipped themselves with specialized weapons designed for specific combat scenarios, Santos accomplished equivalent results with a device intended for routine maintenance. This apparent primitiveness masked a sophisticated understanding of applied physics. The wrench served as a kinetic force multiplier, a resonance frequency generator, a precision calibration tool, and a psychological warfare device. In Santos's hands, it could disable electronic systems through targeted electromagnetic pulse generation, achieved by striking specific components at calculated intervals. It could destabilize molecular bonds and advanced materials through harmonic frequency application. It could serve as an impromptu weapon with effectiveness that ranged from non-lethal compliance enforcement to complete structural destruction of hardened targets. More importantly, the wrench represented humanity's refusal to be constrained by intended purposes or conventional applications. Where other species saw a maintenance tool, humans saw unlimited potential constrained only by imagination and understanding of physics. This flexibility of thinking, applied to every system on the station, created a defensive capability that exceeded the original design specifications of the facility by several orders of magnitude. Part 3. Victory through superior understanding. The siege reached its climax during the 14th hour, when the Zelkan commander, Fleet Marshal Korthak, made the tactical decision to breach the reactor chamber and end the engagement through the destruction of the station's power core. His reasoning was sound according to conventional military doctrine. Eliminate the enemy's power source and their defensive capabilities would collapse. This strategy proved to be exactly what Santos had been expecting. The reactor chamber had been transformed into what she described in her post-engagement report as a physics demonstration with hostile applications. She had spent the previous 6 hours carefully modifying the magnetic containment systems, not to destabilize the reactor, but to create what she termed a controlled gravitational anomaly with tactical applications. When the Zelkan assault team breached the reactor chamber, they encountered an environment where the laws of physics appeared to have been selectively suspended. Gravity varied from 0.1 g to 6 g in concentric zones around the reactor core. Electromagnetic fields created barriers that deflected energy weapons while allowing human personnel to pass unimpeded. The containment field itself had been reconfigured to generate standing wave patterns that interfered with Zelkan equipment while serving as a communication medium for human defenders. Fleet Marshal Korthak, leading the assault personally, found himself trapped in a gravitational field that pinned him to the deck, while Santos approached with her wrench and expression of professional irritation. The conversation that followed was recorded by both human and Zelkan communication systems, and has since become required study material in military academies across the galaxy. Your equipment is poorly shielded against electromagnetic interference, Santos observed, examining Korthak's immobilized exoskeleton with the clinical detachment of a maintenance inspection. The power coupling to your mobility systems runs through a junction that's vulnerable to harmonic resonance failure. The armor plating uses molecular bonding techniques that become unstable when exposed to specific frequency ranges. Your weapon systems rely on crystalline matrices that fragment predictably under kinetic stress applied at calculated angles. She demonstrated each observation by making minor adjustments to his equipment with her wrench. Power systems failed. Armor segments separated cleanly along molecular boundaries. Weapons disassembled themselves into component parts. Within 3 minutes, Fleet Marshal Korthak found himself wearing the technological equivalent of expensive debris, while Santos continued her technical assessment. "The problem with your approach," she continued, checking the torque specifications on a bolt that had previously secured his helmet, "is that you're fighting with equipment instead of understanding. I don't need advanced weapons because I understand how your advanced weapons work. I don't need specialized armor because I know how to make the environment hostile to your specialized armor. I don't need tactical superiority because I've already transformed this entire station into a weapon that you can't recognize, much less counter." The surrender and its implications. Fleet Marshal Korthak's surrender came not through military defeat, but through a profound philosophical realization that his forces were not engaged in combat, but rather in a practical demonstration of physics principles that he had been invited to fail. Santos had not simply defended Proxima Station, she had revealed the fundamental weaknesses in Zelkan military doctrine, equipment design, and tactical thinking. The surviving Zelkan forces withdrew from the station in a state of technological paranoia that would affect hegemony military planning for decades. Their after-action reports described humans as weaponized engineers who treated the universe itself as hostile territory to be conquered through superior understanding rather than superior firepower. Santos's post-engagement activities demonstrated the continuing validity of her approach. She spent the following week repairing the environmental systems she had modified, returning the station to standard operating parameters while simultaneously documenting the improvements that could be made to defensive capabilities through creative interpretation of design specifications. Her technical reports became the foundation for human military engineering doctrine and required reading for any species contemplating hostile action against human installations. The philosophy vindicated the principle that the man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others, found its ultimate validation in Santos's transformation during the siege. She had systematically eliminated every assumption, every dependency, every limitation that constrained conventional thinking about defensive warfare. In place of these weaknesses, she built an understanding of fundamental physical principles that allowed her to treat any environment as a weapon and any tool as a force multiplier. The weak self that she destroyed was the self that accepted intended purposes as limitations, that relied on specialized equipment for specialized functions, that treated infrastructure as static rather than dynamic. The self that remained was someone who could look at a maintenance wrench and see a precision instrument for manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe, who could examine a space station and envision a fortress that would make its enemies defeat themselves through their own technological dependencies. This transformation was not unique to Santos, but representative of human military engineering philosophy. Where other species created weapons, humans created weaponized understanding. Where aliens developed specialized combat equipment, humans developed the ability to turn any environment into a combat advantage through superior comprehension of underlying principles. Final analysis and galactic implications. The Proxima Station defense established several principles that have since been incorporated into interstellar military doctrine, though few species have proven capable of practical application. The primary lesson remains that technological superiority becomes irrelevant when confronted with opponents who understand technology better than its creators intended. Santos's wrench, now displayed in the Human Military Engineering Museum on Earth, bears a simple inscription, "Applied Physics." This understated description masks the profound truth that humans have consistently demonstrated throughout their expansion into galactic civilization, that the most dangerous weapon in the universe is not advanced technology, but rather the refusal to accept limitations on how that technology can be used. The Zelkan hegemony has not attempted military action against human installations since the Proxima incident. Their official position is that humans represent an unacceptable tactical variable in military planning, though private communications suggest a more fundamental concern. As one Zelkan military analyst noted in a classified report, "We sent our strongest warriors with our best equipment against a maintenance engineer with a wrench. She won." This suggests that we fundamentally misunderstand what strength means. The human response to this assessment, delivered through diplomatic channels, consisted of a single technical manual titled "Basic Maintenance Procedures for Hostile Environments" and a note from Santos herself. "This is just the beginning. Wait until you see what we can do with a full toolbox." Conclusion. The enduring legacy of the Proxima Station defense demonstrated that human military capability extends far beyond conventional weapons and tactics, into a realm of applied physics and creative destruction that defies traditional military analysis. Santos's victory was not achieved through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through the systematic elimination of her own limitations and the creative application of fundamental scientific principles to solve the problem of hostile alien forces. Her example continues to influence human military doctrine and serves as a cautionary tale for any species considering aggressive action against human interests. The lesson remains clear. Humans do not simply use tools, they become tools, transforming themselves and their environment into weapons through understanding that transcends conventional applications. The wrench remains, a simple tool that became a symbol of humanity's refusal to accept the limitations that constrain other forms of intelligent life. In the hands of someone who has destroyed their weak self and rebuilt their capabilities on a foundation of unlimited creative potential, even the most basic implement becomes a force that can reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others. The engineer who understands that limitation is a choice rather than a constraint becomes unstoppable. Santos proved both principles through practical demonstration. Armed with nothing more than intimate knowledge of physics, an unshakable determination to solve problems through creative application of available resources, and a wrench that became legendary throughout the known galaxy. Her victory stands as testimony to the fundamental truth that humanity has carried into the stars. The strongest weapon is not what you carry, but how you think. And the most dangerous humans are not soldiers, but engineers who refuse to accept that anything is impossible if you understand the underlying principles well enough to break them correctly. Viewing by hostile entities requires specific authorization from human military command. Technical specifications have been redacted for security purposes.